originating live on blasttheradio.com. Ask your smart speaker to play Blast the Radio. Live video available on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. The number to call or text is 613-413-2217. And now, telling it like it is, here's Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. John, I have a little story about Prince Philip that I would like to share with our listeners and our viewers. Most people who I am sure listening now probably weren't alive when this happened, but let me just go back a little bit. It's October 1958. The world's attention has been galvanized by an unfolding drama in the little town of Spring Hill, Nova Scotia. More than 150, almost 200 coal miners are trapped more than a mile beneath the Earth's surface. There has been what is called a horrible bump. This is when the Earth suddenly, from the bottom, will heave up, and in many cases threw men up against the roof, pinned them to the roof, etc. In the end, 75 of these miners were killed. 99 were rescued, many of them very dramatically. Many of the rescues had to be carried out by men called draggermen, specially trained, they were called draggermen, without any kind of equipment whatsoever. They were afraid that a spark would set off a deadly gas explosion. So much of the rescue work, moving tons and tons of earth and coal and rock, was done by the bare hands of these men, lying in a tunnel, and they would scoop. So it was a very, very dramatic and tension-filled story. How many of these men could they rescue? More than almost 200 men trapped beneath. I was Canadian editor, believe it or not, even though I was only 22, Canadian editor of United Press International, headquartered out of Montreal. United Press International at that time was a major worldwide wire service, much like Reuters today. It's UPI is no longer in existence, but when I was there in 1958, it was a major server of virtually every newspaper in the world and most radio stations in the world. I was one of the few reporters there that had actually any field experience. So for whatever reason, UPI sent me from Montreal to Spring Hill as the only UPI reporter there. My stories about the drama unfolding and the rescues were carried on the front pages, and literally front pages of newspapers around the world, day after day. In many cases, front page, I still have copies of the New York Times, for example, front page with my byline. Included in the newspapers covering this story were several British newspapers, obviously from Fleet Street in London. So on October 31st, this is 1958 once again, Prince Philip comes to Spring Hill to offer his condolences, his support for the rescue workers, etc., etc. And of course, I am assigned to try and get an interview. I request an interview, and to my surprise, he agreed to be interviewed by me. I believe I was the only one that he did agree to interview. So I sat down with him, and I'll never forget, it was in a bleak little room. It was one of the offices, I guess, of the coal company there. And I introduced myself, and he looked at me and he said, "Ah, you're the man who wrote the coffin story." And immediately I knew what he was talking about. Yes, sir, I did. Very moving, he said. And then we continued a brief interview. The coffin story was a very moving story. I happened to stumble across the story that in a number of households where the husband or perhaps the uncle or brother was trapped underneath and no hope of rescue, a number of households, the family had begun moving furniture out of the living rooms of the homes to make way for the coffin. Because, as is the custom in Eastern Canada and other places, the wake would be held in the living room. In fact, many homes, older homes on the East Coast, have wider than normal doorways, and the intent of this is to allow coffins to be brought in. So I did the story about the furniture being removed from living rooms and to make way for coffins. Prince Philip in Britain, in London at the time, obviously, excuse me, Buckingham Palace, read one of the stories and remembered it. And his comment to me was moving, very moving, which moved me, actually. I was only 22, so I was a little bit stage struck, believe me, with a man of this importance. But we had a very interesting interview. And as I say, at the when it was all over and done, there were 99 men rescued, but 75 died. As a consequence, as you probably know, they closed the Spring Hill mine. There is a museum there. And by the way, there is a large printing of a newspaper story in the museum, which outlines the whole story. And that story is mine. It's one of the few mementos, I guess, of newspaper coverage that I have of me. So that's my memory of the prince. I found him to be very gracious. Excuse me, my throat's giving out. I'm still moved by this story. The whole story of Spring Hill sometimes still brings me to tears. Um, there's another aspect to this. There were two brothers, the Hunter brothers, and after about 6 or 7 days, 12 miners were rescued. Very dramatic. I mean, there wasn't a dry eye anywhere, including in my face, when these were rescued, because we never thought that any of these men would be rescued. So they rescued 12, and one of them was one of the Hunter brothers. And I'm sorry, but Wilfred Hunter was rescued. And I interviewed him, and he said that he had been working side by side. Don't forget, this is more than a mile beneath the surface. Okay, it's under the ocean, actually, the mine shaft. He had been working side by side with his twin brother Albert. And when the bump hit, the lights went out. It broke his leg. Wilfred's leg was broken. He's lying there, almost immobile, and he can reach up to the ceiling. The roof or the floor has now been pushed way up, and he can feel a body above him, stuck to the roof above him. And he is sure that the body above him is that of his brother Albert. Make a long story short, about 6, 7 days later, this is after, in fact, all of the media, except myself, had left Spring Hill because we thought there would be no more rescued. I was asked to stay on because I was taking some pictures and I wanted to do some wrap-up stories, whatever. Lo and behold, another, I think it was 7 or 8 men were rescued. This is after more than a week without any water or food, many of them severely injured. And lo and behold, one of those rescued was Wilfred's brother, his twin brother. I was the one, actually, Wilfred was in hospital in Spring Hill, and I learned right away that his brother Albert was the second one rescued. He had been airlifted off, I think, to Moncton. And I was the one who told Wilfred that his brother had come out alive. And they began to cry. I'll never forget. Excuse me. A very moving story. Excuse me, 63 years ago, but as you can tell, it still moves me. It was possibly the most dramatic and moving story that I have covered in all of my career. So there's my little story about the prince. All right. Um, John, have we got any messages coming in here? Anybody can relieve me and let me dry my eyes here.
Lowell, you've seen a lot of stories, and I mean, listen, that's just the human element to what we do, right? I mean, you can't see something like that and not be affected by it.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. It was very interesting. The second rescue. I'll give you a little story on that.
Sure.
I had befriended, or actually, a young man whose uncle actually was one of the miners that was killed, that was never rescued. Befriended me for some reason. He was young, I was young, and we struck up a little bit of a friendship there. He was very interested, and when the 12 had been rescued, and we didn't think there were going to be any more, all of the rest of the media, the world's media, finally left, except for me. I stayed on for a couple more days, and then I went to a hotel room because I was going to fly back to Montreal out of Moncton. So I went back to Moncton. I'm in the hotel room, and lo and behold, at about 2 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings in my room. It's this young man that had befriended me, and he's crying. He said, "Lowell, they have found some more." So immediately I bulletined this on UPI, and I rushed back to, got a taxi all the way back to Spring Hill. And for the better part of a day, I was the only one covering this second rescue, which was very, very dramatic. Finally, the rest of the world's press returned. But those are my, I think, the most dramatic memories I have of more than 60 years in journalism. Um, we do have to get on. Well, let me just do a little commercial here for when we're talking about some of the pleasant things in life. Oh, by the way, I have to tell you, John, that this is a very historic day in the Green household. Okay.
Okay.
I opened the shorts drawer and pulled out a pair. I wish that I had a camera that I could show you a lovely pair of blue shorts. And lo and behold, despite the fact that we have been imprisoned in our home for the better part of a year, I put the shorts on and they still fit.
See,
so I'm very proud of myself.
Well, that's my fear. If I reach into my shorts drawer, they're not going to fit me. Good for you.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, got the shorts on today and spent a little bit of time out on the deck, actually, to be honest with you.
Nice.
Now, Debbie and I, every morning before I go on the air, I will talk to her and I will say, what do you think I should be talking about today? Because she sometimes has a different perspective. And she said, I'm wondering, Lowell, when this is going to end. Are we ever going to be able to get back to a normal life? And I thought, you know what? That's a hell of a great question. Will it ever end? My answer is this. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a prognosticator. I don't know, but I would suspect that hopefully it will end when we finally get enough vaccines to overwhelm all of the mutations that are out there. What I see ahead of us is a race. It's a race that I hope we win. And that is that we get enough vaccines and enough arms so that we'll find, because sooner or later, and I've said this all along, sooner or later, there is going to be a mutation out there that cannot be attacked successfully by vaccine. It's inevitable. The mutations continue to mutate. I mean, you have a mutation of a mutation. Soon there'll be a mutation of a mutation of a, etc. Sooner or later, one of those is not going to be able to be attacked by a vaccine. My hope, and if I believe in prayer, my hope and prayer is that we have enough people vaccinated, protected in this country, that somehow or other we are able to escape that, as they will in Britain, the United States, and many other countries, which are so far ahead of us. I think most people are aware of that. But I see this, some people don't see the urgency here in getting vaccinations. John, there is a desperate need for speed. These mutations are scaring the bejesus out of me.
Me too.
And they should be scaring the bejesus out of everybody. This is why we're in so-called wave 3. This is why how many new infections again today in Ottawa?
Was 242 new infections in Ottawa today.
Over 4,000 in the province. I mean,
yep.
They told us a couple of weeks ago that if we didn't do something, we were going to see 5,000 and 6,000 new infections every day. Well,
we're almost
yesterday
there.
We saw 4,000. We're approaching it. There's no question. And the only way, and we covered this yesterday, and anybody that is capable of rational thought knows the only way to beat this is not through the lockdowns. That may forestall it somewhat. The masks certainly help, but they will never beat it. The only thing that will beat it is if we can get enough vaccines and enough arms that we can have what we call herd immunity. And by the way, as I announced yesterday, but it's important to mention it again, they expect that in Britain, in the UK, they will have herd immunity as of Monday. One of the reasons is they have vaccinated almost 60% of the total population. And when you factor in the people who have already had COVID and recovered, so they have immunity as well, they figure that come Monday, about 73% of residents of the UK will be immune. And thus, they will have herd immunity. In the United States, they expect that herd immunity will arrive sometime probably in late June. Here in Canada, God knows if we will ever have herd immunity. And which to me, John, poses a great mystery. Where are the vaccines? Do you realize that it is now 4 months? Well, next Wednesday will be exactly 4 months. The first vaccines arrived in Canada on December 14, which means that next Wednesday, which will be April 14, it will be 4 months since we first got vaccines here. And in that time, we have only been able to vaccinate less than 7 million people. We need 60 to 70 million vaccinations. So far, we have received only about 7 million. In 4 months' time. Keep going through this. Folks, we got to start doing better. Don't talk to me about the provinces. The provinces can only administer what they have. So the great mystery is, where are the vaccines? Trudeau and other members of the Liberal caucus would stand in the House, and still do, and talk about the fact that we have more vaccines ordered per capita than any other nation in the world. Well, that may be, but where the hell are they? We're 4 months later now, and we still have. I mean, they're administering more vaccines in Bangladesh than we are here. Where are the vaccines? I understand that today, maybe tomorrow, we're going to receive, I think it's 330,000 from COVAX. This is the international organization that is supposed to supply vaccines to third world nations. We apparently are going to get about 1 million. We're going to take about 1 million vaccines from third world nations because we don't have enough here.
We're shopping at Value Village, basically.
Shopping in Value Village.
Yep.
Shears.
Shields.
Once again,
Shields.
got a. What did I say?
You said
Shields.
Shears.
Sorry, I'm still a little. I'm still a little shaken by.
I understand. And by the way, the comments that came flooding in, people just love you as a storyteller. That's, and I agree.
Well, after 63 years, you better have some stories.
I
right?
would hope so. Anyway,
if you don't have, if by age 40, or I'm sorry, 84, you don't have some stories, you really haven't lived very much of a life.
Well, tell us another story. This time about Shields.
Okay. Yesterday, I received another congratulatory phone call actually from someone who had just shopped at Shields. Was very, very pleased. They shopped obviously by the internet. They ordered shields.ca. In this case, it was a brand new freezer, beautiful freezer. They got delivered within 3 days. They said they were very surprised. It was in stock, exactly what they wanted. Price is very, very competitive. They checked with some of the big box stores, and believe it or not, they said the price was slightly better than they could get at a big box store. So there you go, folks. Just because this is Pakenham and a smaller dealer, doesn't mean that they don't have the supply. They do get a huge warehouse. It's in stock. The prices are great, and you cannot beat the service. And you know what? It's local. It's local. It's Canadian. It's family owned. If you can shop local, whether it's Shields or whatever, if you can shop local, please do. John, you've got some emails coming in here.
Yep, some of the comments so far. And by the way, we invite your phone calls as well. 613-413-2217. Your go-to place, of course, blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Joshua says there's a difference between ordered and arrived.
Clearly.
Hey, I got a lot of things on order at Amazon. They're not here yet, so I don't actually have them, do I? Just saying.
Well, it really begs the question, and I've dealt with this before. My understanding is that, in fact, they were never. It's not really a contract. What apparently has been agreed to is an option to buy if supplies become available. And this apparently is the big problem. Plus the fact that we didn't invest in local manufacture as they did in the UK. As I've told the story before, the UK started out exactly as we did here in Canada, and that is they had no local manufacturing of vaccines. But they decided immediately, the government of Britain decided immediately, we'd better have some domestic production here. So they started up, and within a few weeks, well, it was over a month, about a month and a half, they were producing millions of vaccines. 2 plants in Britain producing millions of vaccines. And that's why they're so far ahead. As I say, Monday, they're going to declare herd immunity, which means that all of the UK, can you imagine, be wide open. 2 plants in Britain producing millions of vaccines. And that's why they're so far ahead. As I say, Monday, they're going to declare herd immunity, which means that all of the UK, can you imagine, be wide open. All the schools reopen, stores reopen, movie theaters, sports stadiums. You'll be able to, 80, 100,000 people jam into soccer stadiums, whatever. Wide open come Monday. Why? Because the government was smart enough to invest in domestic manufacture of vaccines. They produce them right there. We had a chance to do it here, but we know what happened. Trudeau decided to invest in China instead. And the Chinese government, screwed, hewed, and blued us, and the rest is history. John, we got some more emails coming in here.
Craig says Trudeau has turned Canada into a third world nation. Chris on Facebook says, what is your opinion, Lowell, on why Randy Suspenders wasn't ticketed for the civil disobedience and grandstanding during this lockdown last night?
You and I were discussing this, John, and I don't have a definitive answer. I didn't contact Doug Ford's office this morning to find out their reaction, and I didn't check with OPP. I suspect that the reasoning is as follows. If we arrest Randy, he becomes even more of a martyr to these kooks, and he becomes even more of a hero, and in the end may damage our case even more. I suspect, and I think there's some logic to that.
Yeah.
Let's not make this guy any more of a hero. I mean, he is a buffoon. He is a gong show. He is harming. There's no question that some people are buying this. And as a consequence, if you don't wear your mask and you don't distance, you're going to be helping to spread COVID. It's as simple as that. So if we make a martyr of him, more people are going to point to him. He's the great hero. I don't think we need a hero, the guy that burns masks. I don't think he should be a hero. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that I agree, but I think that that's probably the rationale.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your point of view on that, because my thinking was, sort of the opposite. Ticket this guy, ticket everybody around him, and that is going to set the precedent in this province for the rest of us to pay attention. But I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. If you make this guy, that's exactly what he wants. He wants to be made an example of.
Yes, precisely.
Yep.
I am sure that he fully expected to be arrested and to have his picture, in handcuffs and holding his hands up like this. I am very sure that Randy Hellier, this is my own belief, but I firmly believe that he's disappointed that he was not arrested. Now, should they have arrested some of those idiots who showed up for that thing? That's a different story. But see here. There's no question in my mind. If you gather in a group, there's probably, about 100 there?
Oh, easily.
Shoulder to shoulder, no masks, et cetera, et cetera. There's almost no question in my mind that somebody in that 100 was infected. And so some people are going to come away from that, and they're going to have COVID, which means in all probability, some of them are going to take up a hospital bed, which means more canceled surgeries and so forth and so on. I firmly believe, you know what? If you don't want to wear the mask, if you want to show up in something like that, forget it. We're not going to, you know what? You get sick, tough be. I know that we can't do that. Everybody's entitled to health care. But I'll tell you, the temptation is there. Oh, you were at Randy's meeting there. I saw you shoulder to shoulder, hugging and kissing everybody around. Now you get sick. Oh, imagine that. Well, you know what? You want a hospital bed? Screw you. I'm telling you, if I was in charge, that's what I'd say. Screw you. Anyway, I'm not in charge, and it's probably just as well, right?
Well,
I can hear people saying, "Oh, thank God for that." Yes, John.
Depends on the day.
Yes.
James says Hillier is a disgrace to our country. Carrie, this is interesting. Carrie, who was listening in was listening in Mexico, is now home in Guatemala. She says Lowell has been talking about this for months. Why are people in government not aware of this? Why are they not doing a better job with the vaccines? This is someone from another country listening in on us, and that's her perspective, FYI.
Well, the reason is that our prime minister, the acquiring, the buying of vaccines is a federal responsibility. It's really the only or major responsibility of the federal government. It was up to Trudeau to order sufficient vaccines early, as they've done in many other countries, okay? He did not do that. Instead, he tried to negotiate with China. His idea was that China would come over here and manufacture in a Montreal plant, which he was going to build or expand. That was his plan. He negotiated with China right through until the end of June, maybe early July, at which point China backed out. They screwed us, simple as that. But for some reason, Trudeau did not get around to ordering more vaccines until sometime in August, by which time almost every other country in the world had ordered vaccines, and in particular the United States, and there were none available. So what was but they won't let us see the contract, but my understanding is that what he finally signed was an option to buy if supplies become available. And as we know, in many cases, supplies did not become available. John, we got some more text coming in.
Chrissy, no? Chrissy says, I'm at a loss for words. So fed up and so frustrated, but staying safe and following rules. Already had my first shot. Wish everyone else did too. And Bunny says, I think if they were there, they should have to pay out of their own pocket for any medical care. Some of the comments coming in on Twitch and on Facebook. Mike says, this guy, I think he's referring to Randy Hillier, this guy will say anything to anybody if they pay him enough. Have you seen him on Ancient Aliens? No, and I don't care
to. One of the things, we're getting a little short of time here, one of the things that is becoming increasingly disconcerting is this 4-month span between shots. There is more and more evidence, more and more scientists, more and more doctors are speaking up and saying, wait a minute, you know, what Trudeau is doing here is using an entire country as guinea pigs. No other country in the world is spacing out these shots 4 months apart. Canada is the only one. They keep telling us, the experts so-called, keep telling us, oh yes, this is acceptable, this is safe, but they refuse to give us the data. I have yet to see, and if anybody out there has seen any data that indicates how effective are these vaccines when it's spelled out for 4 months. We are told, and actually there's confusing messages here. Originally, we were told, for example, that the Pfizer vaccine was about 80% effective after the first shot. Now I see more information that it's only about 60% effective after the first shot. And after the second shot, it's about 95%. However, is it 95% effective if that second shot does not come along for 4 months? There's no data on that. But the entire country is being subjected to this. We're all guinea pigs. Why? Because Trudeau wants to be able to say, oh, we've got everybody vaccinated. Well, everybody may be vaccinated, but only half vaccinated. That's the problem. Centennial Glass. Here is, once again, a local company, extremely well run, very good reputation. I mean, just, Google centennialglass.ca or go to their website, centennialglass.ca, and there you will see all kinds of references. They do, you know what? It boils down to this, folks. Centennial Glass does good work. They've got huge supplies, whatever it is, glass. They'll repair even a broken window. Be glad to repair broken screens. But they really specialize. New windows, indoors, beautiful mirrors, and indoor shower, glass shower. We have an indoor glass shower here that's just absolutely beautiful. It's great. Whatever it is, glass furniture, all sorts of new designs. Now, got an idea that you think might be done in glass? Give them a call at Centennial Glass. They'll be able to help you draw up some plans, tell you if it's possible, and give you the price. centennialglass.ca. John, we're almost out of time here. Got anything more?
I mean, to me, no, I've got another comment from Karina. We'll get to that to close things up. My only comment, regarding the first shot versus, in the 4 months for the second shot, I mean, if you let your oil change go to 100,000, 200,000 kilometers against manufacturer, you avoid your warranty. I don't understand why we're not listening to the manufacturers when it comes to the shots. And Karina agrees. She says they should follow up on the studies to confirm if people who already got COVID need only one shot. That would help get more vaccines for more people and reduce the time to get the second shot.
I mean, we already have some evidence that you can still catch COVID after taking your first shot.
Yep.
14 workers, frontline workers at the Heart Institute have come down with COVID after receiving the first shot.
Good friend of mine and a guy who does a show on this radio station, Jesse Reynolds, has his first shot. He contracted COVID. Same with his mother.
See, this is the problem. It's only partially effective after the first. Somewhere between 80 and 60% after the first shot. There seems to be a difference in messaging. But they all agree that after the second shot, the effectiveness of both Moderna and Pfizer is 95%. So, folks, by spacing this out 4 months, we're not fully vaccinated for another 4 months. And I'm not even sure, nor can any doctors assure me, give me the data. How effective are they if the spacing is 4 months?
I think we're back to square one if we let it go that long, frankly.
Thank you all. I will not be here Monday. I've got another doctor's appointment. Nothing serious, I hope. But we'll see you next Tuesday. Have a good weekend, John, and everybody.
And you as well. Well, stay safe.
All right.
Lowell Green, live on blasttheradio.com. Show info and links at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Subscribe to the Lowell Green podcast. Available